Here I am inspecting the contents of the first artboard inside the original view in the Save for Web and Devices dialog box. And as you may recall, we've got what should be single pixel strokes that are bleeding over into neighboring pixels. And in fact, it's happening all over the artwork. There's a new way to solve this problem inside of Illustrator CS5, but we've got to leave this dialog box to take advantage of it. So go ahead and click on the Cancel button in order to return to the larger illustration. And notice that I'm working inside of Ghost Robot with PDF.ai, found inside the 12 exporting folder. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this first artboard so that I can take it in more detail. And then I'm going to switch to the pixel preview. And notice, by the way, currently I've got overprint preview turned on for this document. Pixel preview automatically turns that function off. So that's just something to bear in mind. And it switches you to a pixel view of your document. Then you can zoom in and you're going to see all those problems that we saw in that original view inside Save for Web and Devices. However, the difference is now we can take care of the problems. So for example, I can click on Boo anywhere on that outline, and I'm going to select the entire robot graphic because all these various objects are grouped together. And then I'll bring up the Transform panel. And I can get to that panel by going to the Window menu and choosing the Transform command. It's got a keyboard shortcut of Shift F8. You may also see this option in your column of icons called Transform. If you click on it, it's this little box that has a bunch of handles around it. Then you'll bring up the Transform panel as well. And I'm going to go ahead and hide this version of the Transform panel because we're going to end up with multiples in just a moment if I don't. But notice if I hover over the X link or the Y link or the W link or the H link, any of those guys bring up the Transform panel. So I'll go ahead and click on X so that it's off to the side here so we can keep an eye on what's going on. I want you to watch the word Boo. As soon as I turn on Align to Pixel Grid, this new checkbox at the bottom of the Transform panel, all of that badness goes away. Notice how exceedingly well Illustrator goes ahead and cleans up that word. It cleans up problems that I didn't even know were there in the first place. Now, it's going to work best on perpendicular lines, that is horizontal lines and vertical lines, on curves like this. So when we're talking about ellipses or circles, that kind of thing, it's not going to make that much of a difference. All right, the other portion of the illustration that I want to clean up is the framing elements. So I'm going to switch over to my Layers panel here, and I'm going to Alt-click or Option-click on the Frames layer in order to select all the framing elements throughout the illustration. And then I'll go searching for X once again. Go ahead and click on it to bring up the Transform panel, and I'll select Align to Pixel Grid, and that'll go ahead and clean up those edges as well. The difference isn't quite as noticeable as it was with Boo, but it's still an improvement. All right, so we'll go ahead and zoom out here a little bit to take in more of the illustration at a time. Now, you may wonder, what if you want Illustrator to do this for you on a regular basis? You don't want to have to sit there and select a bunch of objects and align them to the pixel grid and select a bunch more objects and align them to the pixel grid and so on. What if you want everything to be aligned to the pixel grid automatically? Well, you've got two options available to you. One is if you're working with symbols. So let's say I go ahead and grab this Boo item, and I'm going to select it independently, actually, with the white arrow tool. So I'll press the A key to select the white arrow tool, then I'll Alt-click 3 times in a row. That would be Option-clicking 3 times in a row in order to select up the grouping stack until I select that entire Boo graphic right there. And then I'll drag it and drop it into the Symbols panel. And notice one of your options when you're creating a new symbol is to automatically align it to the pixel grid. So any future instances of that symbol will be aligned. All right, I'm going to cancel out because we really haven't discussed symbols yet. We will, of course, in a future chapter of this series. We'll discuss them at length. However, I just want you to see that new option is there. Another option that's available to you, incidentally, is when you go to the File menu and you choose the New command, or you press Control-N, Command-N on the Mac, to make a new document. Then you have this checkbox down here in the Advanced area, so you'd have to make sure that Advanced is expanded, like so. And then you'll see this checkbox, Align New Objects to Pixel Grid. And that ensures that anything you draw inside the new illustration will be aligned. It is turned on by default when you make a web graphic. Now, I set my graphic up in advance as a print graphic because I originally wanted to print it, and then it was later that I decided I wanted to export it to the web, which is a very common way to work, by the way. That's the whole idea, is you're trying to repurpose your graphics right, left, and center. Anyway, when you create a new print graphic, that checkbox is off by default. So what in the world do I do about this graphic right here? Well, you would think just about everything that's available to you inside the new dialog box that doesn't have to do with artboards is provided to you inside the document setup command. So if you go to document setup, you've got a ton of options here, but nothing about aligning to the pixel grid. Here's what you do instead. It's a very difficult option to find, but it is here. Bring up the transform panel again. So I'm going to go ahead and click on transform. Make sure that nothing is selected inside your illustration. All the options will be dimmed. You go over to the flyout menu and you turn on this command, align new objects to pixel grid. And from now on, everything you draw inside of this illustration will be aligned to the pixel grid. So that takes care of that. In the next exercise, I'm going to show you another new feature inside of Illustrator CS5 that is useful when you're preparing graphics for the web. And this one allows you to modify the anti-aliasing that's assigned to your type.